What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again with the Stochastic DFS channel. And today we're talking some college football DFS ahead of the Friday 2-game slate. Before we get started, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when this and all other content goes live. We are brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook. New users can make a wager of $50 and get $250 in the form of bonus bets. You'll get $50 right away when that first wager settles, and then $50 extra dollars each of the next 4 weeks. Those need to be used within 7 days of issuance. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. We have a weird 2-game slate, an FCS team on deck playing Indiana, but we bring back the data sheet. So I will pull that up, go through some quick housekeeping notes briefly, and then dive into this. Those of you that are seeing this for the first time, we keep this on the Stochastic channel. It is available in part of our college football package. You'll see the matchup data at the top. So we have Indiana taking on Indiana State. Seconds per play rank. It just ranks how fast the teams are. If a team has a dash, that just means they have yet to play an FBS team. So Indiana State, of course, they played an FCS team. We've got the pass rates for each team. Offensive line, defensive line, that sacks allowed, sacks generated. So Indiana, they allowed 1 sack. They've generated 0. We have the Vegas data, implied team total, spread, over, under, and then pass defense, run defense. Pass D is just how many yards a team allowed. Then we've got yards per attempt. Same thing goes with the run defense. As far as the player-by-player statistics, I think this is pretty self-explanatory. Attempts per game for quarterbacks, just how many times you're throwing, yards per game. Sacks and scrambles, that kind of just breaks down the rushing attempts. When you get down to the running attempts for the running backs, the quarterback section, this is all the designed runs. So if you see a discrepancy between like the yards per game rushing for the quarterback versus the yards in the quarterback section up top, that's just sacks that aren't accounted for. Receivers, you've got targets over the last 4 games. New additions, the route percentage for these guys, that'll be on the far right of the receiver section. If you've got a question, hit me up in the comments and I will happily answer. But yeah, let's dive into this. First game is Indiana State. Indiana, we do not have FCS lines, and sadly, our friend, curator of SP Plus, Bill Connolly, has not released his lines yet. So when that happens, I generally default to 50-point totals and 38-point spreads. It'll be close to this. You look at this Indiana State team, they're horrible for an FCS team. They were 2-9 last year. They just lost to Eastern Illinois 27-0 last week. They have the same coaching staff. I don't think they're going to be much better. Last year, they were at 63 plays per game, 45% pass rate. This is a really bad FCS team, and they use 2 quarterbacks. They play polar opposite roles. Gavin Screws is a passer, if you want to call him that. He only had 116 yards against Eastern Illinois. And then Evan Elias is a rusher. He had 1 pass attempt, didn't complete it, but he ran for 59 yards. That was on 8 rush attempts. I don't think either of these guys is very viable. I would rather just pass. It's tough because most of this team is going to be a pass. They used 3 running backs, T. Hodge, Justin Dinka, Corbin Allen. None of them had more than 8 attempts. None of them had more than 20 rushing yards. If you're playing anybody, it's probably Dakota Crum. He's 4,300. He had 14 targets in that first game. If you're looking for a leverage option, it would be Harry Van Dyne, 5 targets, but you look at the routes. Van Dyne, 97%. Dakota Cadden, I might have said his name wrong. I don't know how to say it. 100% of the routes. Kevin Barrett had 97% route share too, just 2 targets. You probably got to play an Indiana State guy because it's a really short slate. It's going to be one of these receivers or pass. Just a really bad team. For Indiana, Taven Jackson's expected to start. Brennan Sorsby played terribly in their first game. Predictably so, was against Ohio State. Jackson didn't play much better. But Jackson can at least run. He's a good athlete. 7,700 is kind of a laughable price tag for what should be a timeshare. Again, even if Jackson starts, I don't think he gets full run here. So I have concerns. I maybe GPPs because their implied team total is so high. They're not going to be super owned. As we'll talk about next, I think the 2 most owned quarterbacks are going to be in that Illinois-Kansas game, without a doubt. Backfield, Jalen Lucas, 11 carries. Christian Turner, 6. Josh Henderson, 4. They did not use Christian Turner at all in the pass game. He ran 1 route. So I would be looking to Jalen Lucas over Turner specifically because he was the pass catching back. He had a 45% route share, even though that was only amounted to one target, but he'll be on the field a lot more than Turner. So that's where I would split the difference. Henderson's interesting as like a GPP dart, but for some reason he's more expensive than these two guys. He did run more routes than Lucas, but right away, Lucas, I think, stands out as the best price-adjusted running back. For the receivers, routes were a little all over the place. McCulley actually led the team with a 77% route share, only amounted to 5 targets. Cam Camper limited in his first game back, 59% route share. That tied DeCoos Carter, 59%. The team lied on their depth chart. They listed EJ Williams as a starter, just 27% of the routes. If you're falling back on this pass catching room, I'm still ranking Cam Camper number 1. They just targeted him the most. As he gets further removed from the injury, that should get better. But I'm putting McCulley 2 for the time being. Just the best route share, 2 targets. Not too far target-wise behind DeCoos Carter at 3, who I would rank 3rd on this. You want to play these guys, I have no issues really getting to any of them. The last thing I'll say is Archer, their tight end, he's not listed here because he didn't see a target. He had almost a full route share. So if you're throwing a dart on a tight end, it would be Archer for me. I think right away, the most contrarian options here are going to be McCulley and Archer. So those of you that want the tournament talk, that's where I would go to navigate this game. And last thing here, Illinois, Kansas, it's just a cleaner path to playing time. This Indiana team should be pretty contrarian overall. So Indiana guys, you want to play them, especially for leverage. Illinois, Kansas, we do have a clear spread here. Kansas, 3-point favorite, total of 58 points. Should be a good game. Expecting 2 offenses to have success here. On the Illinois side, Luke Altmaier, signal caller, faced a lot of pressure, but was able to evade that, scrambled 3 times, had 5 design runs, ultimately was able to turn that into 69 total yards. So good on Altmaier. He's 6,400. Again, I think Jalen Daniels and Altmaier are going to be the 2 clear quarterbacks people play here. So if you play like a Taven Jackson or something, it should be contrarian. But for cash, that's easily the safest option here. At running back, you basically had a 50-50 split between Reggie Love and Josh McCray. Love was significantly more efficient on the ground, but McCray's a big back. So, I mean, touchdown scoring, that should favor him in the future. I want to play one of these guys for sure, and likely one of the Kansas backs on the other side. I expect Love to be more owned. So those of you in tournaments, I think McCray will give you a little leverage. But ultimately, these are 2 pretty good plays overall. I have no issues with either one. The receiving game, we saw Pat Bryant pop up for a big game, led the team in receiving yards, but he was 3rd on the team in routes, 4th if you include tight end Tip Raymond. Isaiah Williams, 97% of the routes. Casey Washington, 84%. Pat Bryant, 56%. Pat Bryant's now the most expensive. The field is sharp now. I actually kind of think Pat Bryant's the least owned, just price-wise. Isaiah Williams is going to be the most owned player on this Illinois team outside of maybe Altmaier. So your leverage pivots would be Bryant or Washington, in my opinion. I also think Tip Raymond's interesting, 60% route rate, 2 targets, 33 yards. He's not going to be a locked-in 100% of the routes guy ever, but catches a touchdown, something like that. At his price tag of $3,500, he can certainly provide you some opportunity there. They basically did not use a fourth receiver, a rotational receiver. So locked in Williams, Washington, Bryant, Tip. They'll use a lot of 2 tight 2 here. For Kansas, we're projected to get Jalen Daniels back. The team has been pretty coy on whether he starts or not. So I think there's a chance you see Bean as well here. But this is a competitive game. Daniels should play most of the snaps if he's healthy. There's no stats on the screen to show you, but this is an elite rusher. This is a guy that has strong passing numbers. He is essentially all his players back. Daniels is a dynamic athlete. He's a guy you definitely want to play. In the off chance he's out, Jason Bean would pop right up into his place. The backfield, I think, will be more condensed than we saw last week. It's funny, you had Devin Neal lead the team with 13 carries. He also saw 3 targets. That's very good, giving him 6 opportunities overall. He had over 100 total yards. In more competitive games, that number is going to rise. Sevion Morrison had 8 carries. All of those occurred in the 4th quarter. He played behind McDuffie and Highshaw. So don't read too much into this. Sevion Morrison, 8 carries. He is basically your 4th string running back. I think Highshaw's still your 2. Only 4 carries for him, was actually out-carried by Dylan McDuffie. Probably not a ton that separates them, but they're going to be your awesome GPP plays. your change of pace options in this offense. Again, I'm not buying this Morrison 8 carry game. For the receivers, you basically had Quentin Skinner and Lawrence Arnold as full-time options here. That was largely because Luke Grimm got hurt in the first half, only a 28% route share for him. He's expected to play here. Luke Grimm was their number 1 receiver at the end of last year. That's huge for the offense and why I actually like Kansas against the spread. But to replace him, they basically just rotated Trevor Wilson, Douglas Emilien, and then extra tight ends. Mason Fairchild, he's the guy to mention, 78% route share as the primary tight end. Jared Casey, 43%. So you can see they did adapt without Grimm to use some 12 personnel stuff. But overall, we'll be going back to Grimm if he's active. And I think all of these receivers are appropriately priced. I would still rank Arnold ahead of Skinner, even with that week 1 target share favoring Skinner slightly over Arnold. We just have a massive sample last year of Arnold being the number 1 receiver through most of the year before Grimm's emergence down the stretch. So we'll slightly favor Grimm and Arnold over Skinner. But that'll do it for us for the 2-gamer. We will be back with a data sheet for the full 13-game DraftKings main slate. Hopefully some FanDuel slates if they release their pricing early enough. That'll be tomorrow. Make sure to check that out. And we'll have live before lock on Saturday as well. Until next time, good luck, everyone. If you'd like to follow, I'm on Twitter at Matt_Gajewski. And for real this time, we'll see you later and good luck.